This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of January 25th, 2021. You know, it was announced today that it looks like the Super Bowl will be somewhat devoid of some of its really major advertisers. And that's really the subject for the podcast for this week. You know, obviously the Super Bowl is going to be different this year because everything from the last 12 months has been different. And football has been different. And in a lot of ways, I think it's probably been less successful for sports than was originally hoped. I guess, you know, everybody got into the idea that when the NBA went into the bubble for the last season, that it was something exciting. And then, well, baseball was a little bit less exciting. And I guess I've yet to see the kind of excitement for football that I really expected this time of year. Oh, sure, it's there. Die-hard football fans love it. There's no question about that. But it's not the same over-the-topness that perhaps there usually is by the time you get to the last week of January. So what I'm seeing is that, according to several sources, including the New York Post, Coca-Cola, Hyundai, avocados from Mexico, Olay, Little Caesars, and Ford are definitely 100% passing on Super Bowl ads. Budweiser is also not going to show up, and Pepsi, while certain Pepsi-Cola brands like Frito-Lay and Mountain Dew will be represented, Pepsi itself will not. That's really a big change. If you think about that list of advertisers, those are some of the most memorable ads from previous years. And I'm going to share with you my idea, my thought, and it's just that, just my opinion. I think the truth is that internally in these companies, everybody was playing a game of OneUpsmanship. Everybody was afraid to back off from the Super Bowl ad because they were afraid that, you know, the other people would kind of outshine them. But now we're starting to see a real understanding that the sheer amount of money that's being paid for Super Bowl advertising is just not going to give a return on investment. Millions and millions of dollars being spent, and that means that you have to make potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in order to turn a return on investment from just one Super Bowl ad. You know, it's a big contrast from where we were 20 years ago when, if you were watching back then, you remember the rush that internet companies had just to get in on Super Bowl ads, which started driving prices up to where they are now. It wasn't about getting a return on investment. It was about building awareness. But these long-term brands like Budweiser, Coke, Pepsi, Ford, Little Caesars, seeing them step back from the Super Bowl really does send a message. I think it sends a message to some extent that the networks have been overcharging for football advertising for some time. And yes, what they really want to tell you is they're trying to be sensitive and they're trying not to spend money in an ostentatious way at a time when so many Americans are struggling because of COVID. That's a great message. But is it really the root cause of why you're seeing these advertisers drop out? No, I do not believe it is. I think that when you look at these stalwarts, the Budweiser, Coke, Pepsi, Ford, and assuming there will be even fewer movie advertisements than there have been because, you know, the movie industry is so changed, it really represents just a huge shift in the way we think about Super Bowl advertising. For over a generation, we've been thinking of Super Bowl advertising in many ways as being better or more kind of interesting than the game itself. People who wouldn't normally watch football would watch the Super Bowl because at least they wanted to see the commercials and they were kind of things that you talked about. But if you really go back and look the last 5 years, that's happened less and less. Why? Because a lot of these advertisements are getting leaked on the internet first, and you don't have to show up in order to see them. Of course, leaking things on the internet with great fanfare benefits the companies that are advertising, but it doesn't benefit the Super Bowl. And that really tends to make me wonder, does this change the economics of NFL football? You know, NFL football has been played this whole season under very careful guidelines. But of course, we look at football as being a very, very rough sport. You can potentially injure yourself. There have been concerns about concussions and also now we have to look at COVID-19 and whether or not you can potentially get it from playing football. And the logical answer is yes. And potentially, because you're sharing a lot of those enclosed spaces like locker rooms as well. And that potentially means that there's a real opportunity for spread. But, it's been argued that one of the reasons that we have professional sports is not just to give people something to look at and think about during this time, but also to support all of these people whose incomes depend on it. And if you look at this most recent drop in advertising, it makes a very, very interesting statement about what that kind of income is going to do, what it's going to be for the 22 season. After all, without the kind of income that comes from these massively expensive Super Bowl ads, what's that going to do to the television coverage? What's that going to do to the amount of money paid to the stadiums? What's it going to do to the player salary? It could be kind of this domino effect, this cascading that takes place. I don't know. But I will say that I think that it's gotten out of hand the last couple of years. I think the return on investment has been nearly impossible. It's been an expense, not a profit generator. See, the advertisers are probably taking a charge off in this kind of advertising, paying millions in dollars. They're just saying, okay, we got to do it. It's required, so we're just going to have to add to the cost of our product in order to compensate for it. It's not a profit generator for them. It is only a profit generator for the league and for the TV stations. I guess I'm going around in circles a little bit, but I think the best thing would be if we saw more reasonable advertising rates for the 22 Super Bowl. And then as we look forward, I think everybody is going to end up getting enough bang for their buck. I don't know what we're going to see this year, if it's going to be a money loser for the TV networks or if it's going to be a break even or whatever. What I'd kind of like to see would be if some of these companies took the amount of money they were spending on Super Bowl ads and perhaps donated it to vaccine production or something like that. But that may be a bit too much to ask, and that's not how our world really works. In the meantime, I think it's still exciting that we're going to have a Super Bowl. I still intend on watching. I still expect to be watching it in 4K on DirecTV. But in the meantime, I will not be hanging around for quite so many commercials. That's it for the Solid Signal podcast for this week. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Leave a comment if you want me to talk about something else in future podcasts. And thank you, as always, for listening.